There's a moment in Michelle Obama's The Light We Carry that feels like a whisper in the dark. A quiet truth that lands not with a bang, but with a breath. She writes about knitting. Yes, knitting. Not politics. Not power. Not even purpose. Just yarn and needles. And yet, in that simple act, she finds something profound. Because when the world feels too big, too loud, too uncertain, sometimes the only thing we can do is something small. Michelle calls these small things her tools. Not solutions. Not escapes. Tools. Anchors. Routines that tether her to the present when everything else feels like it's spinning. And maybe you know that feeling too. Maybe you've stood in your kitchen, staring at the same four walls, wondering how to keep going. Maybe you've scrolled through headlines, feeling the weight of a world you can't fix. Maybe you felt powerless, not because you are weak but because you are human. That's where the small things come in. For Michelle it was knitting. For you it might be journaling, or baking, or walking the same path every morning with a podcast in your ears and the sky slowly changing above you. These aren't distractions. They're declarations. They say, I am still here. I am still choosing to show up. I am still carrying light, even if it's just a flicker. Michelle tells us that when the pandemic hit, when the political climate grew toxic, when fear crept in through every crack, she didn't try to fix the world. She picked up her needles. She made scarves. She made mistakes. She unraveled and started again. And in that rhythm she found peace. There's something radical about that. About choosing presence over panic. About choosing to make something, anything, when the world is falling apart. It reminds us that we don't have to be extraordinary to survive the extraordinary. We just have to keep moving, keep making, keep breathing. Michelle's story isn't about perfection. It's about practice. It's about showing up for yourself in the smallest ways over and over again, until those small things become a kind of armor. And here's the beautiful part. Those small things, they ripple. A scarf becomes a gift. A walk becomes a habit. A journal entry becomes a revelation. A loaf of bread becomes a moment of connection. You don't need a grand plan. You need a thread. Something to hold on to. Something to remind you that you are not powerless. You are not alone. Michelle writes, when we are able to recognize our own light, we become empowered to use it. But sometimes, recognizing that light starts with something as simple as making your bed, lighting a candle, calling a friend, stirring a pot of soup. It's not about the thing. It's about the choosing. Choosing to care. Choosing to create. Choosing to carry on. So if you're watching this right now and you're feeling overwhelmed, start small. Pick up the book you've been meaning to read. Water your plants. Write one sentence. Take one breath. That's how we carry the light. Not in grand gestures but in quiet ones. Not in certainty but in effort. Not in knowing what comes next, but in choosing to keep going anyway. Michelle Obama's light doesn't come from being a former First Lady. It comes from being a woman who, like you, has faced fear, doubt, and darkness, and still chooses to knit. Still chooses to show up. Still chooses to believe that small things matter. 'Cause they do. They always have. And maybe, just maybe, they're what will carry us through. Fear. It's a word we whisper. Feeling we hide. A shadow we try to outrun. But Michelle Obama doesn't run from fear. She sits with it. She listens to it. And in the light we carry, she invites us to do the same. Because fear, she says, isn't the enemy. It's a signal. It's the body's way of saying, pay attention. Something matters here. And when we learn to listen, not obey, not surrender, but listen, fear becomes a tool, compass, teacher. Michelle shares how fear shaped her life long before the White House. As a young girl on the south side of Chicago, she feared not being enough, not being smart enough, not being accepted, not being safe. And yet she moved forward anyway. Not because she was fearless, but because she learned to carry her fear with grace. She writes about the fear of raising daughters in the public eye, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of failing, not just herself but the millions of women who saw themselves in her. And still she showed up. She didn't wait for the fear to go away. She walked with it. She worked with it. Because here's the truth. Fear doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're awake. It means you care. It means you're standing at the edge of something that matters. And that edge, that trembling, terrifying edge, is often where growth begins. Michelle tells us that fear is like a flashlight. It shines a light on what we value, what we're afraid to lose, what we're afraid to try. And if we can hold that flashlight steady, if we can look at what it's illuminating, we can make choices from clarity, not panic. So how do we do that? How do we stop letting fear paralyze us? Michelle offers a practice. She names her fears. Loud. In paper. In conversation. Because when fear is named, it loses its power. It becomes a thing you can hold, examine, and eventually carry. She also reminds us that courage isn't loud. It's not always a speech or a protest or a leap. Sometimes courage is quiet. It's getting out of bed. It's making the call. It's saying, I don't know, and showing up anyway. And sometimes courage is choosing to rest, to retreat, to knit a scarf or take a walk or cry in the shower, and then try again tomorrow. Michelle doesn't romanticize fear. She respects it. She honors it. But she doesn't let it drive. She says, fear is useful, but it's not in charge. And that's the shift. We don't have to eliminate fear. We just have to stop letting it lead. So if you're watching this and you're afraid of change, of failure, of being seen, know this. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're not alone. You are human. And fear is part of the package. But so is courage. So is resilience. So is the quiet, steady light you carry, even when you can't see it. Michelle's story reminds us that fear doesn't mean stop. It means pause, breathe, reflect, and then choose. Choose to move forward even if your voice shakes. Choose to speak up even if your hands tremble. Choose to believe that you are capable of more than your fear would have you believe. 'Cause you are. You always have been. And the light you carry, stronger than you know. We live in a world of filters, of curated feeds, of perfect angles, of polished captions that hide the chaos behind the scenes. And in the light we carry, Michelle Obama asks a question that cuts through the noise. Who are you when no one's watching? It's a question that's both terrifying and liberating. Because in a world that rewards performance, authenticity becomes an act of rebellion. Michelle shares how even as First Lady, one of the most visible women in the world, she struggled with self-doubt, with imposter syndrome, with the pressure to be perfect. She writes about the weight of expectations, the fear of being judged, the temptation to shrink herself to fit into someone else's idea of who she should be. And yet, she chose to show up as herself. Not the version that made everyone comfortable, but the version that was real. The version that laughed loudly, that cried privately, that questioned everything, that made mistakes, that kept going. Michelle reminds us that authenticity isn't about being flawless. It's about being honest. It's about saying, this is me, all of me. The messy, the magical, the in-between. And that kind of honesty is contagious. It gives others permission to do the same. Take off the mask. To drop the act. To breathe. She talks about the power of vulnerability. How sharing our struggles doesn't make us weak. It makes us human. And in a world that's starving for connection, humanity is the most powerful currency we have. Michelle tells the story of meeting young girls who felt invisible, who felt like they had to be someone else to be seen. And she looked them in the eyes and said, you are enough. Not someday. Not when you lose weight. Not when you get the job. Not when you fix everything. As you are. That message, that radical acceptance, is the heartbeat of this section. Because we've all been taught to perform, to smile when we're hurting, to succeed without showing the struggle, to post the highlight reel and hide the behind the scenes. But Michelle challenges us to flip the script, to share the behind the scenes, to speak the truth, to be the kind of person who doesn't just look strong, but is strong enough to be real. She writes, authenticity is a practice. It's a choice we make every day. And that choice, It's not easy. It means risking rejection. It means facing discomfort. It means standing in your truth even when it's inconvenient. But it also means freedom. Freedom from comparison, from perfectionism, from the exhausting chase to be liked. It means waking up and knowing that you are living your life, not someone else's version of it. So how do we practice authenticity? Michelle offers a few tools. She journals. She reflects. She surrounds herself with people who love her for who she is, not who she performs to be. She sets boundaries. She says no. She honors her energy. And most importantly, she tells the truth, even when it's hard. Because truth builds trust. And trust builds connection. And connection is what we're all craving. So if you're watching this and you feel like you've been performing, like you've been hiding parts of yourself to fit in, this is your invitation. To come home to yourself. To speak your truth. To be the kind of woman who doesn't just carry light, but shines it unapologetically. Michelle's story is a reminder that you don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You just have to be real. And in a world of filters, realness is revolutionary. There's a moment in the light we carry when Michelle Obama talks about her mother. Not as a symbol, not as a lesson, but as a person, quiet, steady, present. Her mother didn't give grand speeches. She didn't push Michelle toward greatness. She simply showed up. Every day. With love. With consistency. With truth. And in that presence, Michelle found her anchor. Because when the world feels unstable, relationships become our roots. They remind us who we are. They hold us when we forget. They carry the light when we can't. Michelle writes about her marriage to Barack, not as a fairy tale, but as a partnership. Practice. A daily choice to grow together, even when it's hard. She shares how they navigate differences. How they fight. How they forgive. How they keep showing up. Not because it's perfect but because it's worth it. And that honesty, it's rare. It's real. It's needed. Because we've all been sold the myth of effortless connection. The idea that love should be easy. That friendship should never falter. That family should always understand. But Michelle reminds us that relationships are work. They are messy. They are sacred. They require vulnerability, patience, boundaries, grace. She talks about her daughters. How she tries to parent with presence, not perfection. How she listens more than she lectures. How she lets them be who they are, even when it scares her. And in that letting go, she finds deeper connection. Michelle also shares stories of her chosen family. The friends who hold her accountable, who make her laugh, who remind her that she's more than her title. These relationships, she says, are her lifelines. They are the people she calls when fear creeps in. When doubt takes over. When the light feels dim. And they don't fix her. They don't rescue her. They simply sit with her. Hear her. Love her. That kind of love. It's healing. It's the kind of love that says, you don't have to be strong right now. I'll hold the light for you. And maybe you've felt that too. Maybe you've had a friend who showed up with soup when you couldn't get out of bed. A partner who held your hand in silence. A sibling who reminded you of your worth when you forgot. Or maybe you're still searching for that kind of connection. Michelle's story reminds us that it's never too late. To reach out. To repair. To rebuild. She encourages us to be intentional. To nurture the relationships that matter. To let go of the ones that drain. To choose connection over isolation. Because we are not meant to carry the light alone. We are meant to pass it. Share it. Reflect it. Michelle writes, our relationships are where we find our strength. Where we remember our light. And that remembering is everything. So if you're watching this and you feel disconnected, start small. Send the text. Make the call. Write the letter. Show up. Not perfectly. Just honestly. Because the people who love you, they don't need you to be flawless. They need you to be real. To be present. To be willing. Michelle's story is a reminder that relationships aren't just part of the journey. They are the journey. They are the places where we grow. Where we heal. Where we become. And in those places, the light we carry becomes brighter. Together. So here we are. We've talked about small things. about fear, about authenticity, about relationships. And now, we arrive at the heart of it all, carrying the light forward. Michelle Obama doesn't pretend to have all the answers. She doesn't offer a 10-step plan or a perfect formula for peace. What she offers is something more powerful, a mindset, a way of being. The choice to carry light, even when the world feels dark. Especially when the world feels dark. She writes, "The light we carry is not about ignoring the darkness. It's about refusing to let it win. That's the invitation. To be a light bearer. Not because you're unafraid, but because you've learned to walk with fear. Not because you're flawless, but because you've chosen to be real. Not because you have it all together, but because you're willing to keep showing up." Michelle reminds us that light isn't loud. It doesn't always look like activism or speeches or grand gestures. Sometimes light is quiet. It's the way you listen, the way you forgive, the way you hold space for someone else's pain. It's the way you keep going even when no one is watching. And here's the truth. We all carry light. Every single one of us. It's in the way we love, the way we create, the way we hope. It's in the stories we tell, the meals we cook, the hands we hold. It's in the way we rise after falling, the way we speak truth in a world of noise, the way we choose kindness when it would be easier to turn away. Michelle's light doesn't come from her title, comes from her choices. And your light, just as powerful. You don't need a platform to make an impact. You need presence. You don't need perfection. You need purpose. You don't need to be fearless. You need to be willing. Willing to try, fail, to begin again. Willing to believe that your light matters. 'Cause it does. It matters to your children, to your friends, to your community, to the stranger who sees your smile and feels less alone. It matters to the world. And when we carry our light, when we share it, protect it, nurture it, we give others permission to do the same. That's how change happens. Not all at once, but one light at a time. So if you've made it this far, if you've felt something stir inside you, this is your moment. Choose light. To carry it forward. To become the kind of person who doesn't just survive, but shines. And if you're ready to go deeper, to sit with Michelle's full wisdom, to hold her words in your hands, to return to them when the world feels heavy, then I have something for you. Soft music swells. Michelle Obama's The Light We Carry is more than a book. It's a companion, guide, mirror, and you can get your copy right now. Buy The Light We Carry on Amazon. Link is given below in description. This link supports the channel and brings this light into your life. So go ahead, click, read, reflect, and then carry the light forward. 'Cause the world needs it. The world needs you.